Hello everyone. This is Selva from School of Public Health. So we are at the last part of today training session. In this session we'll be looking at two tools that is widely used by the community. One is data quality dashboard, focusing on assessing the quality of the data, and the other one is Achilles, which is focused mainly on generating some summary statistics about the data set or characterizing your database before you do any analysis. So let's start with data quality dashboard. So data quality dashboard is nothing but an open source R package, which is built based on Khan's framework to assess the quality of observational healthcare data. So what is Khan's framework? Khan's framework is nothing but a systematic or a logical approach to assess the quality of data based on different data quality dimensions. You can see here in screen that the dimensions that we look at are plausibility, conformance, and completeness. Plausibility means the data correctness or the believability of a value. Let's say, for example, the day's supply cannot be in negative, so it's impossible to have that value. So that comes under plausibility. And conformance indicates the format or the syntactic structure of the data. Let's say, for example, if a field can only accommodate numeric or integer value, you only expect those values to be in there. You don't expect string. So conformance related checks help you identify those issues. And completeness is focused on the presence or absence of a value in a column. So that's about the different data quality dimensions that our tool focuses on. Though this tool is just 2 years old, but it has gained a lot of attention within the community due to its ease of use and easy interpretability of the results. So so we should thank IQVIA and the other development team members like Claire and Ajit. So what you see on the right-hand side is how the data quality dashboard will look like. So which we will let you experience yourself by running the R code. We will guide you step by step. So you will also get to see this. And in the upcoming slides, I'll just show you some snapshots and some examples of data quality rules. So this is the main dashboard. You can see here we have run the data quality checks for a synthetic database that you can see on screen. We have run around, we have run around 1,639 checks, which you can see on the total column, out of which 1,557 checks have passed and 82 checks have failed. So you can see the data quality checks are grouped under different categories and context. Here we can see under plausibility, we have 180 verification checks and 283 validation checks. So what is the difference between verification and validation? Usually verification is something that you do with the internal reference values, whereas validation is something that you compare with external standards. Say, for example, if you have some lab values, if you're going to compare it with the threshold values that you have set up, you would say that as a verification check. But if you want to do it with external gold standard values from other institutions or from any other gold standard data set, you would call that as a validation checks. And similarly for conformance, also we have validation checks, which is mainly on validating whether your data meets the syntactic and structural requirements. So that's about the glimpse of this dashboard. And then here in this screenshot, you are looking at some of the data quality rules, which we will later see in detail. So for example, if you look at the second rule, it says that number and percentage of distinct source values in the measurement source value field of the measurement table map to 0. So this basically tries to find out how many rows, how many distinct measurement records are mapped to 0. Distinct measurement source value records are mapped to 0. Usually, because basically we are trying to do standardized research, you try to map as much as you can. And if your source data is unable to map, like more than 50% of your source data is not able to be mapped to OHDSI, then there is very little value that you can derive through this, right? Because you're not able to map it to a standardized concept, which prevents you from doing any standardized research. So you can see that they have set a threshold of 0.30, which is 30%. And then most of the records have violated, which you can see in the first column. Yeah, so hence the status is failed. So if your actual value is greater than the threshold, then the status will be failed. If it's less than the threshold, it's passed. Say for example, if you look at the, say for example, you can look at this third rule that have a number and percentage of records that have a value in the drug concept ID field in the drug era table that do not conform to the ingredient class. Okay, so if you have gone through the OHDSI documentation, you might be aware that drug era table is a derived table, and it looks, it is based on, the drug exposure table, and the values are only based on the ingredient class. It does not store the clinical drug component or the brand names of the drug. The drug era table will store data only at the ingredient class. And there are some scripts online that can help you fill this table. In this example, we can see that in this data set, the number of records that violated is less than the threshold that they have set. So we call this check as pass. We consider this check as passed. Right. Okay, and yeah, so this is another thing where you can explore the results in detail. So if you look at the highlighted rule, it says that the the number of records with a value of 0 in the concept ID, condition concept ID field is greater than the threshold. The threshold is only 5%, but then the number of records that failing is around 60%. So it's obvious that this rule is failed. Now we want to find out why these records are failed. How can we locate those records and fix those issues? So later through R, we will see how to locate those records. But then now in this screen, you can see that we have already located, and we have shared a snapshot of it as to why a lot of records have failed. That's because we have condition concept ID mapped to 0. So now once you locate it, now you can review these records and work with your mapping team and fix these mapping inconsistency. For stroke and all these things that I've highlighted, you already have a mapping in Athena. So once you update your mapping, once you update your concept IDs, and rerun the data quality dashboard, you can see that now that the percentage of records that failed has come down, but it is not resolved yet, but it has come down, right? So this is how the process works. First, you run the DQD, and then it gives you a lot of results about which rules are failing and passing. You investigate the failed rules, and then you look at the records in the database, and you will fix them. So yeah, that's about DQD. Whatever I shared with you now, we will do that practically in another 10 minutes. So you can get to try this. And the other tool, okay, before we move to Akhil's, right? Like any questions based on what we saw? I know we just saw a bit of theory, but we'll go into the practical soon. But any questions? Okay, so I take that as no questions. So, and we'll move to, sorry?
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
So later we will practice how to run the DQT later or not.
Yes, we will do that.
Okay, so it will depend. You will using the R code, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, Selva, do we apply this on a sample data set or a complete?
Okay. So currently you will be trying it on the sample data, the Cynthia data that's on your VM, but this can be applied to the real data sets as well, with some modifications to the rule based on your site requirements and things like that. But this is widely used for real data sets in the Odyssey community. Yeah. Nitesh, does that answer your question?
Yeah, right.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So, and the next one is Achilles. So, this is one of the very first tools, much older than DQD. This has multiple components to it. One is to generate some statistics about the data set, and it also has some inbuilt component for assessing the data quality, but it has very few rules, like 150 to 200 rules, when compared to DQD, which has 3000 plus rules. So if you want to assess the data quality, we would recommend you try DQD. And then if you want to generate some summary statistics about the data set, then you can try Achilles. So both these tools, DQD and Achilles, comes as a R package, and it's available as open source from the Odyssey GitHub. We will share the links, and you can just download it and use it in your data set. So that's about Achilles, and you can see the screen grabs here, some samples of how the output would look like. So yeah, you get a distribution of the year of birth, you get stratification by gender, race, and ethnicity. And then this is a domain specific report. What you are seeing here is for the conditions report. Yeah, and drugs report. Yeah, drugs report. Similarly, you also have reports for conditions and lab measurements and other domains as well. So yeah, okay, I think that's about these two tools. And yeah, so we should be doing the practical and then come back to the last two slides. Yeah. So can you all open your VM? Sorry, I know you are already on VM, but can you all open RStudio? And don't run any commands yet. I think when you launch RStudio, by default, Achilles and DQD script should open, because it works that way for me. So I hope it works the same for you as well. So, and don't run any commands yet. You have to open RStudio from the remote desktop, from the VM that you have been given. Yeah. I'm also trying to connect to my remote desktop since I switched the system. So give me 2 minutes. Don't run any commands yet. There are some installation commands which we don't want to do now. So
I'm talking and I'm muted. Okay. So for those who are looking for your R while he's logging in, so it's this little thing that you see right here.
Okay, just instead of R, right? You should yeah, R studio, yeah.
Okay, so I just want to make sure because I don't play with this either myself. So let me get out of that one. So it's this little R Studio one that you want to click on. That's what he's talking about. If you click on it, leave it alone. Again, don't triple click or quadruple click because you're going to open way too many. And it's loading. He's saying don't hit run yet because you'll see a bunch of this stuff is already pre-populated. And I know some of you guys are R folks, and I know you're very anxious to hit the run button on some of this stuff, but please don't. Okay, so when you load it, your screen should look like this. Okay, let us know if your screen doesn't look like this. Everything's on your little box. So we staged everything on your box already. Feel free, Selva, if you want to take back the control. I just wanted to show people while you were trying to open up your desktop.
So can you all see my R Studio? Yep. Okay. Okay, so let's start by executing the library commands. Don't do any installation. Place your cursor on the library tidyverse command and press Control Enter. So which means it executes, the command is run. So yeah, we'll wait for it. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry, I forgot to mention one thing. At the top, I have set the time zone, sys.setn, right? Just place your cursor at the beginning of sys.setn command and just press Control Enter. It should say the environment is set. And then don't do any installation. Just load the library commands by pressing Control Enter.
Sorry, 1 second. The question is, I don't have the left box where to open the script. So by default, all this should have been populated. Because your boxes, we copy and imaged. If you don't have it, Selva, do you know how to get it? Because mine automatically opened with all this in it as well.
I mean, Stephen, you're not able to see the R scripts, or is there any issue with your VM?
I just tried to find out the R code in document file, but I opened one is generate DQD report.
See, it's under documents Selva _DQ tools, under which you will find these two scripts.
Documents, so okay, let me find it.
Yeah. So, yeah, any questions, any difficulty in executing these library commands?
So again, you said it was under documents. And then where? Because I see more than one person. There's a folder called Silver DQ Tools. Okay. So for those who who doesn't seem to have opened that. And within that, which one do you want them to open inside the Silver one? Because there's two.
Yeah. They can launch both as well. They can open both the files now so that we can use the other one later. Yeah. One is Akil's and one is DQD.
Okay. So the one you're right now on is DQD.
DQD. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. So I'm going to give 2 more minutes. If you have any issues launching it, do let me know. We have already configured the default parameters, so we don't want you to make any changes to the script. We just want you to just execute it as is and get a feel of the dashboard that you will see on your screen. hoping that everything goes well. If not, I request you all to be kind like how you were to Chan yesterday, right? So be the same. But today is not my birthday though. Yeah.
Oh, come on. You can just say it's your birthday and we all won't know, okay?
Okay.
Chan didn't show up again, or else I asked everybody to say, I think happy belated birthday, but he didn't show up again.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I think you all are set now. So now the first thing that we have to do is we have to establish connection to the database. The database connection is already populated. You can see in the code that we have database name, password, and the port numbers and everything. So place your cursor on the connection details line and press Control Enter. So I think that worked. I know for our experts here, this might seem a bit slow, but then we also have participants from other backgrounds. So we would prefer to go step by step. Yeah. Okay. So I think that went well for everyone. So now to extract the data and do the analysis, right, we need to configure the schema details where our data resides. The clinical data usually resides in the CDM Cynthia schema, which is something that you can find in the database. But yeah, now the detail is already populated. So just press Control Enter. You will get that. If you see any line in red color, do let me know. Otherwise, we are good. And then place your cursor on results database schema and press Control Enter again. And then place your cursor on the next line and press Control Enter. Yeah, CDM source name is nothing but the name of your source, so that when the dashboard opens, you have a proper name for the stakeholders to view and understand, right? Like if there is no name, then it may not look good. So we configure the CDM source details here. And then number of threads, usually it is set to 1 if you're using traditional databases like PostgreSQL and SQL Server and things like that. If you're using massive parallel processing database, then you can set multiple threads as well. But in this case, we are using PostgreSQL. So we set it to 1 and press Control Enter. And we set the SQL only to false because we don't want just to generate the SQL. We want to run those scripts. So we set the SQL only to false. Say, for instance, if you want to just have a look at the SQL code that DQD will run in the backend, you can set it to true. But since now we intend to run the code, so you can set it to false and press Control Enter. And then output folder is where the logs would go. So just leave it as it is and just press Control Enter. And then for the verbose mode is about how detailed you want your logs to be. So just leave it as it is. You'll set it to false and press Control Enter. And then write to table is nothing but writing your DQD results to a table in your database. So we set that to true, and then you press Control Enter. Yeah, and then check levels is nothing but the different check levels that we have in the data quality dashboard. So DQD has 3000 plus checks, which is we saw they are grouped under different categories like plausibility, conformance, and completeness across different contexts like verification and validation. These rules, these checks are again subdivided at the field level or the table level or the concept level. These are like different filters that you will see once we launch the dashboard. So press Control Enter. Okay. And all these 3000 checks have check names associated with it. Currently, we are trying to run all the checks, whatever we have in the DQD version that we have. So we don't give any check names specifically in the brackets in the vector, which is check names. So you just leave it empty, which means it will take all the checks under DQD. If you want to find the names of the DQD checks, you can find it under this folder, which is inst csv omobsidian check descriptions.csv. Under data quality dashboard folder, you will find it, but we will not do that now. We will do that later. Yeah, so you will see, just press Control Enter from check names. And then for tables to exclude, you would use this field when you have when you have tables with no data, right? Say for example, in our source data, we have data only for like 6 to 7 tables. But then OMOBCDM has around 24, 25 clinical tables, if I'm not wrong. So when you are doing real time, you want to exclude tables, so that it can fasten your speed up your execution. So currently we are dealing with dummy data, so it's okay to leave it empty and just press Control Enter. Okay, so now we are at the final thing. So now we are in the data quality dashboard, execute DQ checks function. So you can see whatever values that we configured above are all nothing but the parameters for this execute data quality checks function, right? So it takes the values from those parameters of the arguments that we configured earlier. So now place your cursor on the data quality dashboard, execute DQ checks function, and press Control Enter. So it's going to take around, yeah, I think it should be running now. Whatever thing that you see in red color is just a warning. Don't worry about that. So I think you all should be seeing connecting using PostgreSQL driver. If anyone is not seeing that, let me know.
The scripts. So you can actually, so it says possible to share all the code scripts for some reason today. So Silva, I don't know. Number one, anything that's on the box, you can actually copy onto your own desktop. Just Control C and Control V over to your desktop, and they'll show up. But again, you would have to know how to change all the parameters and everything. Like right now, everything's set up for this particular environment. But all this code is actually also on the data quality dashboard GitHub. It's just we downloaded all of it, we set everything all up already, or else it would take us a lot longer to work with you guys to do this.
Jessica,
right,
yeah, I mean, if you want to zoom out your screen, I'm not sure whether you tried this. Under view, you have some, I'm not sure whether you want zoom in or zoom out. Did you try these two options that I'm showing on screen? That can increase the screen visibility, yeah. Okay, then, yeah, then we cannot do anything further, yeah. Maybe you can copy the scripts and refer later. Yeah.
The other thing is in Teams, there's a way to make this full screen. So you kind of have to there should be a button that makes the thing full screen. So, sorry, go ahead, Silva.
Yeah. Yeah, so now we have already, we are running the DQ checks. It will not take much time. It will just take around 5 minutes. So you guys can ask me any questions if you have, or if you want to take a very short break, you can. But yeah, so it will take 5 minutes. So we can use this to discuss anything about DQD or OMOBCDM or whatever. Yeah. Muyi, I think you're on mute.
I was going to say, or you can get up on your yoga ball instead of your chair and start bouncing like me.
Okay.
It's exercise, right? Instead of sitting on a chair all the time. So got to move around a little bit. So get up and stretch. Feel free. So while it's running, I just want to get a pulse. You guys can give us a thumbs up or whatever. How are you guys enjoying the class? I mean, is this enough information too much information. And the reason why we're asking is this is the only time that we've done this. Oh, yay, thank you. Where it's a 2-day, because the normal ETL class is a 1-day and it's a lot shorter. And the feedback that we've gotten from that is that it's too short because you go over so many high-level things and that's it, right? And then I've also internally, I've had it for like a week. And you don't want to be in my 1-week classes because those are torturous. So that's why we're trying the whole new 2 weeks, or not 2 weeks, sorry, 2 days, and trying to see if it's enough information for you guys to get started, right? Like I said, we don't go down the code level. The other thing that we would be interested in, when is the next run? I love that question. We'll have to figure that out. We'll have to find the people to do the next run. But thank you. I like that. The other thing that we would love to get is like, is there anything we can improve upon, or is there any certain aspects that we should like really focus on, or did we really focus enough in the right areas? Because we tried to cover all the different aspects of ETL, right? Not just one area. So, oh, thank you, you guys. Maybe we can have it 1 week on ETL development. Yeah, like I said, that would be my 1-week course, and 3 of those days is actually ETL development. Yeah, maybe we can do that. I'll have to see who wants to go teach the ETL portion of it, because it ain't gonna be me. I don't code. Actually, you don't want me to code, because I'll go in there and rip everything apart, and I won't write it properly because I haven't coded in years. But yeah, that's a good feedback. Anything else you guys want us to, maybe focus on? Because I want to bring this feedback not just to this group, but also to the global team, because the global team actually asked me to bring some feedback back to them as to how this training went. Besides that, it was great, and we got like over 50 to anywhere between 50 to 70 people show up here. I see more comments coming. Are we going to have an Atlas on training as well? I didn't plan for one, so just to let the cat out of the bag a little, we are planning the Asia Pacific Symposium. We started planning it actually this week, but right now we aren't looking at doing any tutorials. So we would, I would need to see what the how many people are interested in some of that, and whether or not we have enough teachers, maybe, because if we do, then we can do potentially like an Atlas training during the symposium, which is somewhere in November. I'll be on the lookout for Asia Symposium. So yeah, we can send out, we can send out like a feeler for the people in this class, right? If you guys have an interest in the Atlas one, and maybe you guys can help us answer yes or no, and maybe we can see, because I would like to get everyone here on the Asia Pacific side. That's one of my goals, to get to understand OHDSI a bit more. Will the VMs be available? Yes, the virtual machines, I intend to keep them up until Monday. So Jiawei, don't shut them down until Monday, okay? You guys might have to bribe Jiawei, who's on this call, because he's the one who has the little control button to hit the kill button, right? But yes, he's going to keep them up until Monday morning, so he will turn them down on Monday morning. So you'll have them over the weekend. Okay. And if you have any questions, I think you can email us. We can put our email addresses maybe in the chat box, and you guys can email us. The other way you can get a hold of us, if you guys have OHDSI Teams, we are in OHDSI Teams. So in OHDSI Teams, you can chat with us at any point in time if you have OHDSI Teams. I don't know if you guys have OHDSI Teams or not. How many people here have OHDSI Teams? Because that's the best way of finding us, to be very frank. And you can chat with us. And my OHDSI Teams is typically always up, and I check that way faster than I can respond to email. I'm not an email, well, I shouldn't say I'm not an email person. I just have way too many emails to respond to emails in time. So yeah, if you don't have Odyssey Teams, do sign up for it. You can do that by going to the Odyssey website and she put in the link. Jing put in the link how to sign up for Odyssey Teams. So you can ask us questions in there. Anything that I say in Odyssey Teams is free. Anything I say via email, I might charge. Okay? I'm just joking.
Yeah.
Silva, it looks like it's done, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you have it back.
Yeah. Okay, so you can see the checks are done, completed within like 5 to 6 minutes. So yeah, so now we have to launch, it outputs a JSON file. Now, since we have already installed or loaded the Shiny app, so we will let the Shiny app read this JSON file. So what you have to do is just in the file name, like view DQ dashboard function, you have a file name at the last, which is Cynthia-2021, but then it has some other date, right? 080605. Just replace that numeric value with the one that you see in your console, which is 081306. Instead of, yeah, just change that numeric part and let me know whether you're able to. You can watch my screen if you're trying, if you cannot follow what I'm trying to do. 081306. So you can see I just replaced that numeric part with the recent output file name. The first alphabetical part is same, Cynthia, but then after hyphen, just replace it with the today's execution date .json, yeah, 2021 08 13 06 0016. And then yeah, press Control Enter by keeping your cursor there and press Control Enter, and it should open a web. It should launch your Google Chrome. Oh, okay. Okay, I think there is some issue. 1 second. Let me try with the old JSON. 1 second. Okay, so I think there is some issue, but so instead of replacing that numeric value, can you just stick to the old value that was there earlier? So that's the previous execution that I did. So for the sake of today's class, we can stick to the previous file name itself. Don't change the file name. And let me know whether you are able to launch something like this. So if you can launch the Shiny app and wait for 10-20 seconds. Yeah, the old one works. Yeah, I think some issue with the JSON or the path that I will fix later. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'll. Can someone paste that old file name in the chat window for Jacob Vimala? Yeah. Okay, I'll try to paste it. Okay, so I see there is a question as to why I changed the file name, right? Okay, so every time when you run DQD, it outputs a JSON file. Like if you run it today and if you run it tomorrow, you're running the checks and the output is stored as a JSON file. The file that was outputted today, I think there is some issue with the path, which we don't want to fix it now. So instead of that, we can just stick to the execution that I did prior to our workshop. I'll just use the same JSON file to show you the dashboard. Yeah. So, but yeah, so the if you see the dashboard being grayed out, it means two things. It could mean two things. One is the path could be incorrect for the JSON file, and then the content, what is there inside the JSON file, could be a problem. Brian, what do you mean nothing happens when I use the original numbers?
Hi. So when I used the dates that you first changed, there's the gray out atlas.
Yes.
But then after that, when we change back to the original, after I hit Control Enter, there's no response.
Yeah, you should. Did any browser open for you? Like, what is the what you see on my screen?
No browser open.
What do you see? Do you see listening on port number, something like this? Like you can see my console screen, which has some comments, right? So do you see anything like that?
Yes.
Yeah. So can you check whether the browser is like in the background or somewhere that you are not able to easily recognize? Does it say listening on HTTP and does it say some port number, but you are not able to see the browser?
It says listening, but there's no other error message.
Is your okay? Can you okay? What about others? Are others able to launch the dashboard? Can you text in the chat? Okay.
I also got the same thing, but I just pasted that URL, so it started working.
Okay. Okay.
But it's some sort of issue with the browser, I think. It gets stuck.
Okay. I think it's a path issue. Yeah. So, Brian, can you try the URL, which is HTTP 127? Yeah. Looks like for some of them it's working fine. Yeah. Isra, can you try the URL HTTP that you see on screen? Okay, other than Isra and Brian, are you all able to launch the DQ dashboard? Yeah, okay. But yeah, since we are working with the old JSON file, I thought we'll stick to the path. Okay, Brian and Isra, can you try the new JSON path that Lynn has sent in the chat?
Silva, can we, for the sake of time, keep
Yeah.
moving?
Okay.
I mean, I know the other two folks aren't able to follow directly, but maybe they can watch your screen, right?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So you saw that no, the execution took only around 5 to 7 minutes, and you don't have to be an R expert to generate this dashboard. The instruction to launch this dashboard are pretty simple, which we did step by step now. So yeah, so now we have launched the dashboard. What you are seeing on screen is the data quality dashboard for CDM Cynthia. And then, yeah, so you can see that we have, oh, sorry, it's responding slowly. Yeah, we have run around 3,486 checks, out of which 3,448 checks are passed and 38 are failed. So this is similar to what we saw earlier. So yeah, now if you are going to exclude some tables from your checks, data quality checks, you will see a reduction in the total number of checks that is run. Now we are considering all the 25 tables. So it is running all the checks, whether data is present or not present. But if you're going to run checks only for like 5 to 6 tables, you might get only like 2,000 checks or 1,500 checks. Yeah, so that's about the dashboard. Now the important part is how do we find out the issues? How do we locate the errors, right? So yeah, this is nothing but just a high-level metadata information about the data set itself. Who owns the data? What is the data set name? Remember, we configured the CDM source name in the R code. It's pulling this information from the table. Okay. And here it is. Remember during the presentation earlier, I told you we should be able to locate the error to be able to identify them and resolve those errors, right? So let's start with the checks that have failed. So under status, you just click on fail, right? So you will see all the checks that have failed. Is everyone good till here? Is everyone able to follow? Yeah. So yeah. So now so now we have listed down the checks that have failed. Now let's look at the first check, right? Which is for the condition occurrence table, and the error is due to conformance category. I told you that conformance is about syntactical or the structure of the database, right? Like if you're going to violate any constraints, then that's going to throw error. So it says relational, which is clear because we are using a relational database, and it's at the field level. The check is the number and percentage of records that have a value in the visit ID field in the condition occurrence table that does not exist in the visit detail table. So, okay, so you can see that this error indicates that there are some orphan visit detail IDs in the condition occurrence table, but then the parent visit detail table does not have it. That's what this error says. Like all the visit detail IDs are first stored or recorded in the visit detail table. So whatever visit detail IDs that you find in other tables should be present in visit detail table. If it's not present, then it is violation of this constraint. So that's why it is throwing this error. And it says 100% of the records have failed. It's because we don't have we may not have had data in the visit detail table, which is expected based on our earlier discussion. So that's why it says failed, right? Now, if you want to investigate the failed check, right? So you can see DQD provides a easy way to locate the errors, right? So once you expand, right? Okay, you have to click on this icon here. If you click plus, it will expand the fail check for you to know more in detail about the checks that are failed. So it says it is a field level check. It is at the condition occurrence table, and the field is visit detail ID. All right. So and then let's go down. Yeah. And here you have the SQL query to locate the error. Like it's not enough if you just know what is the record, how many number of records are failed. We want to look at those error and inspect them and correct them, right? So you copy this SQL, right? Copy this SQL from here and go to your database. I think you all have it. Okay. And then yeah, go be connected to the ETL database. Yeah, so go there and then open you can just open query tool. Let me try running this. Okay, so if anyone is having any trouble in doing this, let me know. Are you all there in the query window where you are able to copy paste the query? I'm going to give 2 minutes, 3 minutes time for you to let me know. So if you are already here and you are able to see the output that I have got on screen, just drop a text so I can let you know what more we can see through this query. Yeah. Aha. Okay, so I think you all have run the query, but now still the output gives only the number of rows that have been violated, right? We want to look at the records that are violated. So that part of the query is here, which, yeah, okay, let me do that. Just okay, so the information that we are looking for is hidden within this query. So what you have to do is let me try first. Okay, right. 1 second. Okay. And run only this specific part. Okay, so to get the records that are causing this issue, right, you should run this inner query only. Just select this and PostgreSQL will run only the selected part. So just select that inner query only through your cursor and then just click on run. And then you can see that it outputs the records that are causing this issue. So this is how we locate the records that are causing issue, and we later decide how to fix it, right? Now you reach out to your data owners and try to understand whether they have visit detail information or whether your developers have made a mistake during their code. That's why they have given 000. The problem here is you can see if you scroll to the right of the output window, you can see that visit detail ID is populated as zeros, right? But then there is no data or no visit detail table or the values. So that's why all the records have failed, and that's why you see 100% of records have failed. So yeah, so any questions or any difficulty in accessing the failed records or in running this query, you have to text in the chat or unmute and let me know. Okay, so then I think you all are pretty clear and you're not encountering any issues yet, which is good. So yeah, we'll just look at one more example, and I will also explain some of the terminologies used in DQ dashboard. Right? Okay, so yeah, so now we looked at conformance issue, right? Now let's look at an example of plausibility issue, right? Similarly, under status use the filter fail, and then under the category you can use plausibility, right? The difference between atemporal and temporal is that temporal checks have a time component to it, whereas atemporal does not have a time component to it. You compare it to a value or you compare it to with a known value, yeah. Whereas atemporal is like if the discharge date is before admission date, then that's an example of atemporal issue. Okay, so now let's look at the second row, which is from the drug era table that is failing for atemporal thing. And the reason is the number and percentage of records with the value in the gap days field of drug era table less than 0. Yeah, so we know that the gap days cannot be negative, right? Like Yeah, so that's the issue here. Now we need to investigate and find out which are those records. So we will do a similar process, which is you will expand this menu, and then scroll down. Yeah, where you can see the number of rows that are violated, right? Percentage of rows and number of rows, and then you get the SQL query from here. Like last time, copy the full one or just the inner query, whichever you want. Go to your database, delete the old query and place the new query, and just running it will give you just the numbers. And now just execute the inner query only. Yeah, you can see that there are a number of records that have gap days like minus 9,400 and things like that, which is impossible, right? So you can see how the rules which are configured in DQD helps us identify this sort of data inconsistency across different categories such as plausibility, conformance, and completeness. So any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
And we can use the DQD to check they have an error in our CDM database, but the error may come from the original raw data and also come from the way that we convert our data. So if that is the problem from conversion, we need to fix it, right? But
Yes.
if they have a problem from raw data, do you have any recommendation to manage about that?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you are right. The DQD works on CDM based data set. For raw data, DQD may not work. Of course, it's an open source tool which you can customize it according to your needs. But then the tool that I'm showing right now, it works only based on CDM data. For raw data quality assessment, we have developed our own quality procedures in-house, where we just do some data quality checks, like trying to see all these temporal checks. Like when we receive the raw data, we do checks like whether the admission date is before discharge date, and then whether how much of missing values are present in a important column, and yeah, things like that, like whether the gender has only the expected values, and then like Muni was discussing earlier, like whether the date of birth, do we have values for all of them, because in observational research date of birth is important. So we have developed a set of checks that we use internally for our raw data quality assessment based on our data source, right? Yeah, similarly, I see that a lot of other OMOP-CDM institutes that have adopted OMOP-CDM, they have also used some data quality checks which are available as a publication that you can read about and find out what are some of the checks that they apply on the raw data quality to make sure, or we cannot completely avoid it, but then we can try to minimize it and prevent a lot of data quality issues from being transported to the CDM instance. So yeah, that's how we do it. We don't have any ready-made tool for that, but we do during our ETL, we do this sort of checks, and then we do the transformation. That's how we do it. Yeah, and then I think the White Rabbit tool and things like that should also help you on that aspect.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So the other thing, I think part of the question here was, what if the CDM, like the data quality dashboard, found the problem, right? It found the problem, but the source of the problem and the reason for the problem is coming from your source data, right? What do you do then?
Okay.
And right, when we encounter those, because I don't own the data, right? All of my data assets I don't own. I actually go back to the source business team and work with them and say, hey, yo, folks, because it's happened, and I know it happens. It happens to us all the time, actually. I go there and I tell them, hey, yo, there's problems here. Like, for example, one of the data quality checks that it does check is for prostate cancer, right? Prostate cancer, we expect it to be typically male. We don't expect it to be female. So when I get those errors, I actually send those records back to my team who processes those, and they then work with the vendors who sends us the data, and they'll fix it. If they don't, then at least I know that every single time I run the data quality check, that there's a certain percentage of it that's going to fail, and there's nothing I can do because I don't change the original source data. But at least I've already dealt with it. So that's one way of going back, and I don't know within your organization whether or not you guys handle it or not, or you can go and ask the person that's sitting next to you who keys in these records to change it. That's the other way, right? So is there a recommended way? No, but I normally do go back to them, give them the records, and say, these are the problems. Can you fix them?
Yeah. Yes, even in Singapore, for our data source, we did the same. Like if we find out the error is due to the source data itself, like Mui said, if we cannot handle it, then we reach out to the source to understand why the data is like that, and then we try to fix it if we can. If not, we cannot do anything further. Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. So that's about DQD, right? You saw how we can run the DQD, identify the records or the rules that have failed, and locate the records that are causing this issue and investigate and fix them. Now, you might have a question. Okay, so are these rules customizable? Yes, it is customizable. You can modify it according to your site requirements. I should let you know that some of the rules in DQD, especially for lab values, are a bit off. The threshold values are a bit not generalizable for all sites. So you might have to tweak that according to your site. Whatever value is present in DQD, that is based on US datasets. I think DQD had a session where physicians from Colombia gathered together, and then they tried identifying the threshold values for some of the measurements. But then a lot of things have changed from then, and those thresholds may not be applicable to your sites. So you might want to revisit those thresholds and correct them to work for you. Only then those can be considered as a valid check or invalid check, right? Let's say, for example, with the checks that we have now, a lot of measurement checks might fail, but that doesn't really mean your data set is incorrect or your data set values are incorrect or full of quality issues, right? It's purely because the threshold values are not standardized according to your site. And that's one thing. And the other thing is, yeah, since we are looking at standardized research, there have been experiments to create lab threshold values based on measurements from multiple sites. So there was an experiment which was done, and we Singapore also participated in that and shared our lab value range like 95 percentile and 99 percentile for most frequently used measurements like HbA1c or systolic blood pressure and things like that. So once we gather the measurement from all the different sites, then with the help of domain expert or with the help of most frequently occurring values, the threshold values can be configured as well. So there are multiple ways to configure threshold value. One is through data-driven approach, and the other could be expert-driven approach. There was one experiment earlier using data-driven approach, but after that I haven't seen anything yet. For the expert-driven approach, it depends if your site has a lot of experts who can afford to spend time and come up with threshold values for this, and other experts agree to it, then you can configure those thresholds here. I will share the documentation at the end of today's session, where I will show you how you can change the threshold values. Okay.
So just to give a little more insights, like us, my team, we don't change the default thresholds. I only change it for certain ones, but overall, some people like to see 100% passes. I don't like to see 100% passes, only because I don't like to provide a inaccurate, at least in my opinion, an inaccurate view of my data quality. One, because there are some tables that I know for sure I don't have data in. So I will 100% make sure those fail, only because if you set it to the threshold to, let's just say, I think if you set it to 0, then it'll all pass, right? But I don't, because I want people to understand that there are failures in there and there are valid reasons why they fail. It failed because I don't have data in that. So when I look at a data quality dashboard, I can see that, oh, okay, it's because you have no data in here, because it'll show me that I have 0 records, okay? So for me, most of ours are in the 90%, but we do not set everything to 100, because you can change all of these. You can change it to, you know, for tables you don't have anything, set it to the threshold of 0, or reverse 100, I can't remember which one it is, and it'll pass, right? But we don't do that. Some people do, some people don't. But that's the cool thing about the data quality dashboard is you can see what the threshold percentage is, and you can see whether or not they passed or fail. So the summary here is, don't look at just the percentage, look at the failures and the thresholds that are being set up, okay, to ensure you understand what the true quality of that data dashboard is, or that data asset is.
Okay, and yeah, I see one question from Gerald D. Just to add on to what Mui said, yeah, so currently we are running on all the tables in this CDM Cynthia database, but if you want to select only very few tables to run the DQ checks on, you can do that. Or if you want to exclude any specific columns from the checks, you can also do that, which is there in the documentation. But you cannot, if a database has 1,000 rows, and if you want to run it only for 500 rows, as far as I know, you cannot do that. But you can exclude tables in a database from checking, going through the checking process, or you can exclude columns, but you cannot exclude rows, as far as I know. Might be we can check the documentation later. Yeah. Okay, so if you don't have any more questions on DQD, then we will switch to Akhil's. Yeah. So, any questions?
I'm sorry that I want to know if we want to change the threshold of each checking. How can we do it?
We can do that, but we will not be doing that today. But then there is a method to do it. It's simple. 1 second, I will try to open it here. Okay, I'll show it here. You can go through the documentation. Type in Google or OHDSI Data Quality Dashboard, and then go to the GitHub, and then click on the link that you see at the right hand side, right? And then go to the articles. and then failure thresholds and how to change them, right? So, which we will let you explore later. I think you will have your boxes for another 1 or 2 days. I think so. So you can explore this. You can see it's all just an Excel file where you can just go change the filters and then change the values, right? There is a procedure which we cannot go through now. But yeah, you can very well do that, change the thresholds and yeah, exclude columns, include columns. Yeah, you can do all of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. Okay, and then for Akils, it is similar, but running it might take some time. Unlike DQD, Akils has to, will take you some time. Usually it takes around half an hour or 45 minutes based on our data set of 15 million records. In this, for this data set as well, it will take some time to run Akils. So, but the procedure is same. We don't have to execute it, but you can see that we connect to the database, right? And then we just do Akils. It's same as DQD, just the functions are different. You just run this Akils function, and then it will store the output in a table, right? And then you just export all the JSON files to a folder, and then we cannot launch it like DQD now because Akils requires some web server setup and things like that, which we will not do now because we cannot do that now. So, I mean, we don't have enough expertise. I mean, like all the participants, so it will be difficult to manage. So we will not do that now. So what I'm going to do is just show you a demo of Akils, right? If you go to your browser, you all can see that there is an icon Akils, right? So just click on that. So it will, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. Now I think now you are all able to see the Akils dashboard, and yeah, it's you can see that it gives some neat reports about your data set with only like 10 to 12 lines of R code, right? You can see it is like what I showed earlier in the PPT. You have the stratification by gender. You have what is the age at the first observation. So you can see that this is not something about quality, right? This does not give you the data quality thing. It gives you characteristics about your data set, just a descriptive summary statistics about your data set, right? Let's say, for example, you want to look at a report like person table. You can look at table-wise reports, and then you have population by race, gender stratification, and ethnicity stratification. So that's one thing. And then if you want to look at other reports like conditions, you can do that.
Silva, can you go back to the person table? The reason why we call this quality, because it is somewhat quality, but it is more of dashboards. The reason why we call this quality as well is because we can see things using a graphic point of view, right? And now you can see that, especially in this people one, right? If you scroll up a bit more, we have a lot of people for some reason spiking up in between 1930 and 1940. So that really allows you really visually to QA your data, right? You can start asking the questions, why do I have such a big spike? Does that really go with the national standards in the US, because this is a US data asset, where there's a spike during that time? Did I have a lot more, was there a lot more bursts during that time? Because then does that trend go with the trend of my data, right? So that's why we still call this data quality, even though it's not showing you like any type of failures, but it does show you things that you can potentially things that potentially can get flagged in your mind. Because if you look at this, like suddenly I look okay, and then I spike.
Sorry.
Sorry, I got muted.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know where I was. But again, the reason why it just allows me to visually see that there may be something wrong with my data. Because when you see this spike and then it suddenly drops, there might be something wrong with my data, right? Even though the ETL rules are all right, because the ETL rule says to bring this in, but here that trend just looks kind of off. So those are things you can check, right? So that's why we call this part of data quality.
Yeah. So like I told you earlier, DQD has more than 3,000 checks, and like Mui said, you can do a visual inspection in Achilles and uncover some data quality issues. But Achilles also has a component that comes with small number of data quality checks, which is Achilles heel, right? You can see that there are some, you can change this to, yeah, you can see that it gives you some messages about the errors, warnings and notification. So you can see, of course, there are only like 30 or something. But then, yeah, I think this is old version, but I think there are around like 150, 160 checks. You can see that it says 1,000 number of persons with at least one condition error. Yeah, they have unmapped concepts, right? So you can see that Achilles also has a data quality component called Achilles heel, along with visual inspection to uncover the errors, if any. You can also use this data quality checks present within Achilles to find out the data quality issues. But DQD has more number of checks, but Achilles has only very few number of checks. And that's about it. And any questions about DQD or Achilles?
The other thing I want to add in is that Achilles itself, actually, if you have Atlas, it's that data profile or the data source tab inside, or the menu portion of it that's inside Atlas. Now, why people might ask, why in the world do you have Achilles separate? Achilles was actually built before Atlas. And Achilles, I can hand over to somebody, right? If somebody wants to see this information, because it's not, and you won't have access to my data, versus if I hand it over Atlas to you, then you have access to my data, right? So that's another reason why it's separated like this, so that I can visually show you this without showing you Atlas or giving you access to Atlas, right? But like I said, like Selva says, this is something you actually have to have a web server to host. So it is a little bit more. It's really pretty similar to Atlas. But the other things that I do like about Achilles is the ability to allow people to quickly browse some of the stuff. So if you can go to like condition, I don't like the tree map here myself, because maybe you guys who are more data scientisty and statistical better understand this, but I can't. Me personally, I skip past that. I actually always go to the table, because one of the questions that people I think just asked, right? How can I look at the number of conditions that were sitting in my source versus the number of conditions that are now sitting in my CDM? Well, you can do that here. Okay, so here you can search by any of the different type of diseases that exist in here and look at how many patients there are. So it automatically sorts by the highest number of patient count, so, or person count here. So you can see there's 67,000 people who have type 2 diabetes. Now, if you want to search maybe on prostate cancer, I don't know if prostate will show up, just prostate. Let's see, right? So there. You can quickly see that there's a bunch of different prostate-related records in here inside the condition occurrence table. You can do this on all the tables that he saw in the drop-down box, but it allows you to quickly search to do some verification on your data to say, hey, this is what I normally have, what I believe I have in my source data. Show me what you guys have in your CDM data. So, and then also I like this for researching wise, because I can quickly see that I do have prostate cancer patients in here that I can use in my data if I wanted to run a study against it, right? So that's the other use of Achilles. Like I said, it is part of Atlas, but if you don't have Atlas, you can install this and have it up yourself.
Okay. Yeah. So that's about it. I mean, if anybody is wondering why do we see NAs here, it's because conditions use, diagnosis use MedDRA vocabulary to show the hierarchy, and that's a special vocabulary that requires some license. So I think we don't have that. That's why you see NA here. But if you go to drug exposure, yeah, you can see here it does not show NA, right? Because here for hierarchy we use ATC classification. So that's readily available vocabulary. So it's free, so you can see it. So yeah, so that's about Achilles, how it is useful. And that's it from my end. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Yeah.
I'm Steve, and sorry that I have so many questions.
It's all right.
I want to ask that because we know that running Achilles is time costing, so you will not run it in this lesson. So after we run the Achilles and we export to the JSON file, how to open it and how to open the JSON file and such as the DQT way to output our result directly, because you mentioned that Achilles cannot be used in the way that we use in DQT.
No, I mean, you can launch Achilles as a web app as well, but unlike Shiny app, which is done within R itself, right? For Achilles, you need to do some setup, which we will not be doing it now, but there is a procedure available online, which I can let you know, right? Yeah. So you can go here.
Yeah, see, the difference between the two is Achilles was written probably 5-6 years ago, where they didn't really use R Shiny as much, versus DQD was written last year, where R Shiny was utilized. R Shiny, you don't require a server to host, right? You could just point it to your local desktop and it works fine. And that's why you can launch the DQD the way he had it right there, because then it just launches on your local PC. Versus Achilles requires a web server, because that's how we first used to develop web apps, right? If anything you want to browse, you have to have a web server and an API and all that fun stuff. And that portion of it just takes a lot longer. That's why we don't want to show it. And I would probably go into a lot more details than you really care for. And that's why we didn't go through that, and it's already pre-installed. It really goes into, knowing how to install a web server and knowing how to install a web app into a web server with APIs, with running all the stuff. But here you can see, like Selva brought up, the instructions are there. You can do it. It's just we're not going to show you because that's just a lot more technical experts than the R experts that I have on this phone call.
Yeah. Sure. Because I have tried that. I actually using the other software called the Visual Studio. Yeah. So I think that if there maybe have some more simple way to to do that. So I just asked about it. So I think it's a pity that we need to use the other web servers for it.
Yeah, you just have to have a web server. You don't need Visual Studio. You don't need Visual Studio to actually install Achilles. You don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean the procedure is simple, but yeah, we need to do some technical things which we will not be doing it today. But yeah, you can see that we have the instructions, right? It's just that it's all done already. You can find all these commands in the R code that we have, and then you just have to create another JSON file and access your index.html. Yeah, you will find all this in the Achilles web folder if you download them. Yeah.
Okay, thanks Very thank you.
Okay, and yeah, so that's it. Yeah, since you asked about launching Achilles in the way as DQD, right? While whole Achilles cannot be launched in a way as DQD, but then if you want to just launch this Achilles heel as a DQD, you can do that using our Shiny app. You don't need any web server and all such. You can just launch this quality component of the Achilles alone as a Shiny app. But yeah, so I will let you explore that on your own later, for which you can find the instructions on the Odyssey GitHub for Achilles. Yeah, so that's it about Achilles and DQD. Any questions?
The only thing I want to add on is that Achilles and DQD, you will execute at the end of your conversion cycle. Earlier, I mentioned that we have scripts that you run after every sprint, right? Those are not DQD and those are not Achilles. Those are our own scripts that we've created that we utilize to run against every sprint, so that they become my unit test, my regression scripts, as well as, at the end here, I do run these guys as well. So these guys are not meant to run because they will error out like crazy without a fully loaded CDM. Okay. There was discussions at one point in time to change Achilles to run, be able to run like after every table, but with the addition of the DQD, that discussion stopped. And like I said, DQD only works when you have everything. Now, I think you can run DQD if you want to. You just have a lot of failures, right? So you can try that. But for us, we have our own scripts that we execute in order for us to ensure our code is still accurate after every sprint. So it's a big difference between the DQD and what we do. So I want to say that actually does conclude our training today as well. We do have some exercises that we added, but again, if you guys can go and look at what they are and play with them yourselves. I know we originally only scheduled this class until this time, so I don't want to take up as much of your time as needed. So let's see, so a big thank you for attending. Now, the one question, if we go beyond the basic CDM, such as the oncology model, will this work? Achilles and DQD have not been adapted to add in more validation on the oncology extension tables, like the episode table or the episode table. So at this point in time, the DQD and Achilles only works on the CDM tables. We have not added the extensions yet. So I'm sure that's something that the DQD team is looking at. So if you want to know about that, you can go to the DQD working group. There is a whole working group for the DQD and Achilles. So do we have any other questions that anyone wants to bring up? No? Okay. I see a lot of you guys are saying thank you. So I want to say thank you very much as well for everybody attending and staying with us for the 2 days. I mean, it was, we're talking about, 12 to 14 hours here that we've had all of you guys on here. And it's been very interactive, very fun. And really enjoyed actually teaching this class with the number of questions with Stephen we welcome all your questions. We love it. David, thank you for all the questions. Jessica, thank you for all the stuff that you guys asked, right? And everybody else that asked. I'm sorry I can't call out everybody, but thank you very much for those who were typing as well as asking all those questions, because it does keep it a lot more interactive. And hopefully we've been able to answer a majority of your questions or teach you guys a bit more about the ETL process. Like I mentioned, we will send a follow-up email to you guys to ask you for some of your advice and some of your feedback, so that one, we can either improve upon it, or two, looking at what other type of tutorials we can do in the Asia Pacific region to help push OHDSI in Asia Pacific. So I want to say again a big thank you for all the teachers. Selva, Chan, I know you're not here, but I'm still going to say it because it's recorded. Jing, the IQVIA team who actually did all of the preparation work, as well as creating the decks and the exercises. So I want to thank all of those, especially Jiawei, who's setting up all of this. So thank you very much for all of this. It is a team and a community effort. That's what it always takes to do anything. So I want to thank you, everybody, and thanks the community here for attending and showing up. Please, if you guys have any questions, let us know in the chat. Email us. Email that OHDSI Asia Pacific account. They'll get a hold of us. So so thank you very much. Hopefully you guys have a nice day. See you guys on the APAC community call. I would love to see all of you guys on the APAC community call going forward. You know, 60 some, almost 70 people showed up here. We would love to see all 70 of you guys on the APAC community call. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mui.
Have a nice one.